Alright guys, this is gonna be a serious video because it's a serious topic. So no jokes. Well, maybe a few jokes. We'll see what happens. So when you're on the internet and you're trying to figure out how to trade for the first time, a lot of what you'll run into is a bunch of hype about how great trading can be. How you could turn $1,000 into $10,000 in just 2 weeks. And it sounds great, and it also makes a lot of sales, because you're gonna end up buying whoever is pushing that product. But the problem with the trading community is that no one shares how bad it can get. Because if you tell someone they could lose everything, why would they want to buy your stuff? So when we do see examples of people sharing their blowups, we need to highlight them. Because if we highlight them, we could learn from them. And we get a better perspective about what trading is really about. So that's what we're gonna do in this video. We are gonna highlight a recent blowup that someone posted on Twitter. Now the person who posted this goes by the Twitter handle OddStats. And this guy is pretty popular, 36,000 followers. And if you remember way back, I actually made a video using one of his charts. But basically what he does on his Twitter feed is post odd stats about the stock market that are pretty interesting. So for example here, you would think the odds of the SPX putting in a positive week would be lower right after having 3 consecutive green weeks, but you would be wrong. The historical chance of a positive week goes up from 56% all weeks to 59% following a 3-week win streak. So he posts a lot of stats like that through his data research that really make you think. So in this case, you would have thought that maybe the market would revert back to a mean, when in fact the market is more likely to keep its momentum and keep going up. Now I was surprised because just the other day he posted this. He said, "My apologies, this is long, this is boring. I know these aren't fun. I don't need or want your pity. I just honestly hope I can save one person from this stupid nightmare." So long story short, he says he finally destroyed his gambling account. And then he goes into what exactly happened. An unsolicited warning from someone who just blew it. "I'd like to believe that I'm a relatively smart fellow. After all, I graduated from the local state university with a 2.03 GPA after failing out once and dropping out another time." Hey, you didn't give up, OddStats, did you? That's good for you. "I spent the majority of my professional life in compliance, but before that I was an investment advisor who only dealt in passive, diversified, asset class-based mutual fund investing. It was slow and boring, but it worked." That's a key point that you want to internalize. Markets are actually boring. They're not supposed to be super fun and fast-paced. That's what the marketers online will tell you, so they can basically convince you it's like a video game or casino where you're just hitting buttons and making money. But no, if you're investing the right way, then it is slow and boring. Like for example, when I set my investments with the system that I'm using, I'm barely checking it once a week because I'm barely trading. I'm sitting and waiting. Just like OddStats is saying here, it's slow and boring. He said it works really well. I not only did really well for our clients, but I also had my own money. It was simple. Buy when you had money and sell when you needed money. Don't sweat the small details. We're properly diversified to minimize risk, which worked, and we'll catch the ups, of which there are always many. I used that system for decades, including the first 3 years of our retirement. See, if you got a good system, you're going to stick with it, even if it is slow and boring. And then over time, you're going to get those compounding results. And in this OddStats story, you're going to see that he was really well off because he continued to execute that strategy. Then he goes on to say, "But it wasn't enough. Oh no, I had to get cute. I learned how to trade derivatives. At first it was simple calls and puts, then exotic spreads. I learned how to trade futures, not exactly difficult, and started placing bigger and bigger bets because we had plenty of money and I could afford to lose some, no problem." And this, as you can imagine, the story is when it starts to get tough. And this is what a lot of traders end up doing. You know, you might start with stocks, but then you realize, oh, there's options, there's futures, I could get leverage. I can pay this much and it's gonna become this much. And it's a bit of greed that creeps into the process. I mean, same thing happened to me. When I first found options, I was like, why the hell am I trading stocks? But then the thing that we all forget every time when we're looking at the upside is the downside. Because that extreme leverage, it's a double-edged sword. It's gonna go both ways. Now back to OddStats. As the last 6 years went by, I became more and more confident in my ever-changing trading systems with options and futures, despite the fact that there was only 1 year where I turned a profit, 450,000 selling call spreads in 2015. That's big money. Every other year, there was always some excuse. Oh, well, if I hadn't lost that 350K on toothless cattle futures, we'd have made money. Or if we had just not taken that 600K loss after the election, we would have had a pretty good year. Dumb stuff like that. Friends and family all warned me I better get out of trading before I blow it all. I won't, I assured them. I'm not that stupid. I was sure of it. This is another thing that happens to every trader. You're looking at your trading process, you're looking at the results, as you should do. You should always be reviewing what's happening. And you're seeing big wins, but you're also seeing big losses. And because of the way our brains work, we just want to see what we want to see. So we kind of ignore the losses and focus on the wins. That objective analysis gets thrown out. And it's just like OddStats said right here. He made 450K 1 year, but the other years he was losing. So I'm sure if he did an objective review of it, the strategy might not have been as profitable as he was hoping it would be. So like he was saying, I'm not that stupid. I was sure of it. And I was wrong. I'd quit day trading back in November, but was still using a swing trading system that damn near never lost, really, until I got completely run over last week. Literally every move I made was wrong, and I managed to completely wipe wipe out my entire gambling account. This is common too. I find it pretty tough to determine the full cycle of your trading strategy. So it's a little easier if you're systematized because you could backtest what would happen across numerous market cycles, but it's not exactly easy to put that backtest together. Now, I don't know what OddStats strategy was, whether it was discretionary or if it was backtested, but the issue here is just like he was saying, where with his strategy, it rarely ever lost. But then all of a sudden, it produced loss after loss after loss. And I don't know if it's because of the crazy volatility we saw in 2018. I assume so. I mean, a lot of hedge funds blew up because of it. And the issue was the strategy probably wasn't tested through a time like that. And a lot of issue that I see with a lot of strategies is that they're not robust enough. And by robust, I mean able to survive through different market environments. So if you take a strategy and you know it's working and you optimize it too much so that it keeps working better and better, one thing that tends to fall off is how well it will work when the environment changes. So say in one market environment, you could optimize your strategy to produce 90% a year. But when you keep optimizing it like that, it loses its ability to survive through tougher times. In fact, it might completely collapse through a tough time. So instead, what you might want to do is build a strategy that makes 15% in a good year instead of the 90%, but then in a horrible year or a year you weren't expecting, it's not going to completely collapse. Maybe you'll only lose 5%. So in that type of strategy, your main focus is on the downside, as it should be in every strategy or system you're trading. But again, we all get greedy, me included, and we just start optimizing for that upside. Can't do that. You always got to remind yourself what could happen, what terrible things could happen. So he goes on to say, I want to be clear, we're not broke or anything near it, still get to claim millionaire status. Thank God it was his gambling account, because OddStats is clearly a smart guy, and he avoided the mistake that a lot of traders unfortunately make, which is trading with their whole savings. Like he said, this was his gambling account, so I'm sure he put aside a portion of money. As you could tell from the story, it was still a large portion that really hurts to lose, but it's not completely destroying his life, so thank God. But holy crap, did I decimate my account something stupid. So I'm here to tell you that the scary stories you hear from elders who quit trading, they're true. Trading is a losing game, it's just gambling. Most people who claim to be winners just ignore their losses and pretend everything is okay. That's exactly what I was saying before. To be sure, some people really can make a living at it, and good for them, but the odds are massively against you. The system is designed to take your money while you're stressed, guessing, nervous, angry, depressed, or most of all, desperate. Again, OddStats is absolutely right here. We talk about psychology a lot on this channel, and the reason is because the market is made to make you crazy and for you to lose your money. The only way you're going to succeed is if you can control those emotions. And I mean, even trading and getting into markets in the first place is kind of wild, because it's like you're walking into fire and then trying to not catch on fire. It's really the toughest part about trading, which is of course why I have to plug my Fomo trading guide here. So this free guide, which you could get by just following the link in the comments or the description and putting your email in so I know where to send it, this guide is going to help you control emotions like FOMO, which leads a lot of traders into doing something stupid, along with other emotions. There's some tips and tactics that I put in there that I use every time I'm feeling like doing something stupid. So make sure you get that, check it out, add those techniques into your safeguards. But back to OddStats. Your money is your money. Your life is your life. I ain't your pappy. You don't owe me anything and I don't owe you anything, but I'm the lucky one. My wife isn't leaving me. She certainly could. And I paid for my house with cash, so I can't lose it as long as I keep paying the taxes. Like I said, OddStats is a smart guy. And what he brings up about his wife, which you'll see he'll mention again later, is another thing that traders and people in the market don't think about. Your relationships, especially in your family, can be greatly affected by what you're doing in the market. Because if you blow up an account, and if it's unfortunately not a gambling account like it was here, you could have blown your entire family's life savings. And I mean, maintaining any relationship is hard enough, but when money becomes involved, it becomes that much harder, especially if you don't have money. So when you're thinking about your downside, if you're in a position where you're putting all your money on the line, you also need to think about what it's going to do to your family and your relationships. So it is kind of a lot of pressure, but thinking about that is hopefully going to keep you from doing something stupid. But do this favor to yourself. Ask yourself why you're really doing this. Actually ask yourself what you'll do if you wake up one day to yet another surprise 6-digit loss that you went to sleep thinking was a winner. If you can't deal with the fallout, get out now while you can. Start a business, go back to school, get a job you enjoy. Don't end up like me, or worse, people who didn't still have a small pile of assets after the big one strikes your account. Again, this is exactly what I was saying before. OddStats was smart enough to have a side gambling account. And you know the old saying, never bet the farm unless you have another farm. You don't want to put all your chips out there because the market is risky. I'll be all right, I hope. My gambling days are over because that account is empty now. My wife swears she's not leaving and that she still loves me. We can always sell this house and move somewhere cheaper if it really comes to that, or more likely I'll just start another business if necessary. But the stress I've gone through the past week since the disaster struck has been unlike any stress I've had since I was still in business and had to worry about sales drying up, which any good business owner is paranoid about constantly, even if things are great. OddStats will still be around, but now I'm angry. I'm embarrassed. I'm humiliated. I've hurt myself and others around me, and that's painful. Think about it before this is you. Be good to each other and remember that greed effing kills. You know, props to OddStats for sharing this story because, like I said, no one wants to share stuff like this. It really doesn't feel good, and it feels even worse when you put it out there. But he's really doing us all a service because we can learn from his example. I mean, he straight up told us, don't do what I did. And the markets, the way they're made, they tempt us into doing exactly what OddStats did. So hopefully you see this example and you rethink what you're doing in your own strategy. And I'm sorry if this video was depressing, but I also just finished the Red Dead Redemption series and realized that story is just completely sad the entire time. And then there's this OddStats story, and I'm nervous for Game of Thrones coming out because what's gonna happen there? True Detective came out, and you know, it's gonna be a great season, but it's gonna be depressing. So if you're feeling bad, just go watch some Curb Your Enthusiasm. That's what I'm gonna do, and I'm gonna feel great after it. Larry David will always make you feel better, or even better than Larry David. I'm lying, it's not even close. But I did release a video on Jeff Bezos. You can go check it out. We roast him. We go through all his text messages. It's great. Yeah, it's okay. But we'll get back to more fun videos in the coming week. So make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit that bell for an email notification for when those videos come out. In the meantime, stay fallible out there. Bye.